started. My name is Mark Webb. I'm with the Highway Department, and today we're going to give you kind of an update on the Kansas Extension project. Um, Alan, you want to give us our first slide there? Oh, wait, it's up to me. Is that right? Uh-oh, that's bad. You what? Well, the slide first. Yeah, that'll kind of get me kicked off here. We got a couple things going on here. Again, this is an update on the Kansas Extension project, just to kind of get you up to speed where we are. This project was let in late 2021. Construction started early 2022 with some clearing of the trees and that sort of thing, kind of get that corridor cleared. There's two phases of this. There's a phase one, which we bid on those dates. Phase two, bid just about a year ago. Phase one runs from Republic Road to Plainview Road. Phase two, Plainview Road down to Farm Road 190, which is almost to the county line. Emery Sapp was a successful low bidder on both those segments. So we've been working with them for the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years now, 3 years anyway. So anyway, it's been a pretty good relationship. Lots of work to be done. And what I wanted to start off with was kind of a drone flight of the phase one portion. So, Alan, if you can get that started. And so here we started. We're just north of Plainview. We're flying along, heading north towards first road you'll see is going to be Weaver Road. A couple things I want to point out to you is this is just a single or two, how I want to say this, it's one lane or one road north, and it's running both north and south. We're in the, if you'll notice right here is where they start the construction. They're working on the construction of that 10-foot sidewalk that's on the right-hand side of the view that you're looking at right now. We're approaching Weaver. We'll talk a little bit about that sidewalk here in just a minute. This is Weaver. This was the location where we had a high-pressure gas line that we had to relocate to the tune of about $2.1 million. That was a pretty expensive and lengthy process. This location here, Timber Brook, is off to your left. As we're going north, we're approaching Farm Road 145 as it ties into the new extension project. In the distance now, you can see on the left-hand side in particular, there's an arch. That's a precast concrete arch culvert that extends underneath this extension. We'll go back and talk about that in just a little bit. And again, we're heading north at this point and curving towards Republic Road. In just a second, we'll make that turn, and you can see up in the top portion of the photo or the video, Republic Road. And once it gets to there, we'll go ahead and stop. And you can see Republic Road on beyond that. So if we can switch back to the slides. And by the way, if you got any questions as we're going along, make sure you ask them, because I'm easily interrupted. I don't mind it, and we can talk about those things as you see them. Here we are looking back towards the south on the Kansas Extension. This is at Republic Road. Republic Road is running right to left. We're looking south. VA clinics there on your left. And this is kind of the configuration that I'll try to describe it this way. The county bought right away to essentially put in 4 lanes, even though we're only installing 2 at this time. And the idea was, let's go ahead and get the corridor purchased. We're in the event when the need is there, we can go ahead and expand by adding 2 more lanes. In this case, those 2 lanes would be on the right-hand or the west side of the current corridor. As you're heading south, there's 2 lanes heading south at this point. They converge right there south of the VA clinic parking lot back into the single. I keep saying single. It's 2-way, but it's just one half of that 4-lane roadway. Like I said, the right-of-way was purchased, and also the road bed was constructed at this time as well. So we went ahead and spent the money to go ahead and bring everything up to grade, get it graded, seeded, mulched, all that sort of thing, so that in the future, when they do need those additional 2 lanes, it'll just be a matter of scraping off the topsoil or, the overburden right there and just installing curb and gutter and the additional 2 lanes. Shouldn't be any major impact to the community at that point. Nothing like it is right now during the initial construction. So a little foresight. Hey, we're taking care of those right-of-way purchases now, and have a plan for the future as we expand in that direction. One of the features, a couple things I want to just kind of highlight. This particular project, this is phase one. We're going to talk about here for a few minutes. One of the items in this project was this, it's called a conspan. It's a precast arch structure. The stem walls that you see there where these arch pieces are going, those are cast in place. And so the span on those arches are about 48 feet. To the center point of that, it's about 25 feet. So it's a huge structure. If you ever get a chance, jump over the edge of the pavement and run down the hillside and just take a look at this thing. Really, it's pretty impressive. It's like, whoa. I'm sure that'll be repurposed for something eventually, somehow, maybe fine dining or I don't know, river walk or something. But it's quite the feature. It's unique to us as a construction feature, and I'm not so sure that there's another one like this in Southwest Missouri. So it's yes, definitely the first one we've done. It's very large. It's a big structure. So anyway, yeah, if you're ever out there walking the trail, like I said, bail off the side and take a look at that. And this was a big feature for us. Another bridge, by the way, and this one's over Ward Branch. This is further south. This is right before you get to Plainview Road. And this is a unique structure as well. It's heavily skewed, and by that I mean the road does not intersect the creek or the floodplain at the same angle. That's not perpendicular like we think of typical crossings. And so the other thing about this one, this is both a horizontal curvature. In other words, as we're looking down on it now, it's curving to the right or left, depending on how you're looking at it. And then it's a vertical curve as well. So you're coming down the hill and it's got a dip in it. So we got two things going on. We're dipping and turning at the same time. Very unique structure. I mean, not unique in the grand scheme of the rest of the world, but for Greene County, it was a very large bridge and it had that feature, which made it more interesting to work on than our typical shorter spans. You might ask why is and they're casting this bridge on this date as this video was taken, or this picture. That bridge deck was cast in one day, had lots of Conco trucks running out there, pumps, and they had it was all mechanized as far as the laydown and screeding and finishing. So again, Emery Sapp, their bridge crew performed this work, and like I said, they poured that whole deck in one day. You might ask, well, why does that deck look like it's green? Well, it's the rebar that's reinforcing this bridge is all epoxy coated, which is green. And so in the next photo, you'll see that I think it shows up even more. So another feature is just the epoxy coated rebar. And that's the reason they do that is for longevity. The thought is that if it's epoxy coated, that it won't rust out as quickly and need restoration in some future date. As we turn, same day, we're looking at this same bridge from a different perspective. We're looking towards the south now. The road that you see running east-west or right to left in this picture that's Plainview. That's where this phase one stopped. And so at the end of this bridge, there's a all three-way stop at this moment. It'll eventually go to a four-way stop when we continue on to the south. And so this picture was taken before the next phase was let, which was, like I said, about a year ago, and they've started construction. They started by clearing all the brush, trees. They ground all the trees up and make bark mulch out of it. Some of that bark mulch remained on the job for erosion control. And so we repurposed that material, and some of it was hauled off to, I think Hanson Tree Service was the contractor, and they probably make that into bark mulch that you're probably buying somewhere. So this is where we are, looking south there at Plainview. Let's see what we got next. Not the greatest picture, and it's kind of rotated, so it's not going to be a very good. And my pointer, I found out, does not point on this screen. So I was dependent on, hey, I'll point to that and show you. Let's just say this. This is rotated to the left of the page is north. And so the major streets you see there, that's Plainview, and it's kind of running top to bottom on your page. There's a yellow line that kind of meanders from Plainview to the right, or in this case to the south, and that runs all the way down to Farm Road 190. Farm Road 190 comes out of River Cut subdivision, and so that's kind of the end point of our project. Kansas Extension will end there at the new Farm Road 190. Let's see, how do I want to describe this? At that point, as we go south, tell you what, let me see if I got a better picture. Yeah, let's look at this. Plainview Road is on the top of your page, and so this is this was taken last week. And so the contractor has removed the trees. They've done some rough grading here, and they're getting into a position where a lot of the material has been moved. Lots and lots of material to be moved on this job. Over 300,000 cubic yards of material had to be moved. A lot of rock, and so the contractor's been doing a lot of blasting out there, trying to get it where he can get it moved. But anyway, from the top of the page, the project is heading to the south. Right here at this T, towards the bottom of the page, that's the new Farm Road 190. To the left of the page would be River Cut, and to the right is going to be something Adam's going to talk about here in a minute. It's a surprise. No, not too much of a surprise. But anyway, so that's what we're looking at. The Kansas will come down. It'll intersect there at Farm Road 190. That will not be a stop condition at this point. It will you'll flow from the north and turning right or to the west over to essentially Cox Road. When we get to Cox Road, there will be a four-way stop there of 190 and Cox Road. Let me back up and talk about the that sidewalk that I mentioned earlier on in that one video. That's turned out to be very popular. I would not have guessed at a great amenity that I don't know who thought about this and said, hey, let's put this in. It's a 10-foot wide pedestrian bike path. It's running all the way from the part we're building is from Republic Road all the way to this point, and it'll turn and go back to the west or to the left in this picture and run over to and make connection over at River Cut. And so essentially all the way from Republic Road into Cox Road on the south end there, a 10-foot wide pedestrian bike path. And that not only is that made, but there's connections along the way to the other parts of the trail system in and around Springfield area. I think what surprises me about this is, and we're out there all the time driving it, but pretty much anytime you're driving that, you will find somebody walking on it. A lot of people from that VA clinic will take their bike or their lunch break or whatever, and they'll just take off and head south and walk as far as they can. The people like in Stonegate or Stone Meadow, I mean, people are just out there taking advantage of that. And so if I've heard one positive thing about this project from all those neighbors is they really like that path.
And occasionally driving.
Yes, yeah, there have been a few people using that as the future, I don't know. Yeah, no, there's a lot of interesting things that have gone on this project, and there's a variety of things like that. We don't have time to talk about all that. But that's kind of the project in a nutshell, both phase 1 and phase 2. As far as completion, the contractor, he feels like he's ahead of schedule as far as this portion goes. So it's yet to be seen, but the completion date is end of September of this year. I think they'll easily make that. And by the way, one of the things I mentioned, there are lots of fill material coming off this project. And what we're seeing right here on the to the right of this photo, that is Lionsgate. And so the contractor is working with the owners, Stinger Properties, to use some of that fill material in building up that subdivision, making more of that accessible. The rest of it is being wasted on another property, not our property, someone else's property, just to the right of this photo. So the contractor is responsible for removing all that material, and that's his business. I think I've got one more picture here before. Yeah, this is kind of a view looking again to the left here. That's Cox Road or Farm Road 141. And then we see Farm Road 190 heading off there to the east or to the right, and it'll intersect with the new Kansas extension. And then I think I'll stop right there and let Adam take over. I think he wanted to talk, or I wanted him to talk about the future, what the future of this corridor looks like. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. There's one last thing, and this is kind of a part of the process of getting that material moved. And Lisa, if you can go ahead and show that. We're going to show this twice because sometimes the first time you don't quite know what you're looking at. But this is a blast that was put off on phase 1. And there's no sound, by the way. And unfortunately, on this screen, it's not real evident, but there's you can almost see like electrical charges that run down through there. I'm not sure if you can pick that up on this or not. We'll show it one more time. Yeah, did you see that kind of sparking that took place right along? So that's the way that they're getting that material removed or shaking it loose. There's a lot of blasting on phase 2. This was on phase 1, and I'm not so sure there were very many locations on phase 1 that required blasting, but phase 2 is extensive. We've got one value engineering proposal where we're going to take a portion of that rock. They felt the rock was competent enough that they're going to try to do what we call a split face. So they put off a shot just to crack the rock, and then they'll go in and remove up to that crack. And so as you're driving south on Plainview, the hope is as you go into that first corner that it'll just be a rock bluff instead of removing all that rock, sloping it back up into the back of Lennox Place. So that's something the contractor proposed, saves them money, saves us. If it works out, it's a savings of about $500,000 for us. So anyway, with that, if there's no questions of me, I'm going to turn it over to Adam and let him finish this out for us. Sir.
Right. How many minutes do we have, by the way? How much time have we got left? 10 minutes. Okay, I wanted to leave a little bit of time in case you guys had any questions. But one of the frequent questions we get when we talk to people about the Kansas Extension project is just generally speaking, like how does Kansas fit into our, I guess, the overall picture of our regional transportation system? Why does it start and end where it does? Why isn't the county taking it further south, or why is it terminating? I think the perception when we presented it at public hearing going back many years ago now, we said, from Greene County's perspective, the project scope really begins at Republic Road and it goes all the way south and it would end at Farm Road 190. And that's for, I guess, a few different reasons. I told Mark maybe it was helpful just to give some context to our group so there's a greater understanding of how we look at that corridor and what the future plans are as far as connecting Kansas to the rest of our Greene County transportation system. Farm Road 190 is one of the corridors that's identified on Greene County's comprehensive plan. If you ever go out on our planning and zoning website and look at there's a document called the Comprehensive Plan. It's basically just a long-range plan that identifies lots and lots of features of Greene County's plans for future land use, how we envision property developing throughout the unincorporated portions of Greene County, and how will we serve those future areas of development with a transportation system One of the components that's in that comprehensive plan is a document called the Major Thoroughfare Plan. And it's a map that identifies all these future road corridors that we envision someday needing to be built throughout Greene County to support future growth and development in the region. Kansas Expressway for many, many years has been a corridor, a line that's drawn on that map. But so too has a road called the East-West Arterial, Farm Road 190 on the southern end, which is where Kansas, this scope of our project ends. That's where the East-West Arterial runs east and west. And if you look at that map, what you'll see is that corridor eventually is planned to connect not just between Cox Road and Kansas Expressway, which is the component that Mark and his team are building in our ongoing project, but someday that East-West Arterial would be connected all the way east over to the South Campbell corridor, and actually all the way across town. It would continue all the way over to Highway 65, and it would be same as Kansas Expressway. It's classified as a primary arterial corridor, which just means that when it's fully built out, we would anticipate it being a 4-lane facility, a median divided, would look basically the same as what Kansas would look when it's fully built out. Like what you see when you drive the urban portions of Kansas Expressway in town today, a 4-lane facility, a median, pretty limited access points along that corridor to provide for higher speed travel and shorter travel times as far as moving folks from point to point. But that's really kind of the context of how Kansas and the East-West Arterial connect to the rest of our regional transportation system. As we're getting towards the end of the Kansas Extension project, one of the things that's on our mind at the Highway Department is the future timing of the connection of the East-West Arterial, and beginning to plan and think about building the first piece that would connect to Kansas, going east to the South Campbell corridor, and essentially completing, really kind of from our standpoint, a transportation loop in the region, being able to connect those north-south corridors with our future east-west connections. And I don't know, a lot of people probably aren't aware that probably 12, 15 years ago, there's been a lot of work that's already transpired on that East-West Arterial corridor. We have a set of preliminary design plans that were done many years ago, looking at what the alignment of that road is. Some of that right-of-way has already been acquired as property has developed. Mark mentioned like the Lions Gate subdivision that's there on the southern end of our Kansas project. As those subdivisions have been platted, developers have worked with the county. They have dedicated future right-of-way for those future transportation corridors. And that's what's occurred along that East-West Arterial. So just thought I would put that out there, that's kind of how Kansas fits, at least in this area, in terms of some of the future expansion of our transportation system. We expect to see that East-West Arterial really would most likely be the next big piece of new roadway corridor that we would look at as we continue to expand our system. And probably that piece between Kansas and Campbell would be the next logical connecting corridor segment to tie that together. As far as, when would that happen and what would that look like? There is no timeline in our mind at this point in time. We are, although I guess I'd say this, we are working right now to try to take the preliminary design plans that were done many years ago and update them and try to get those into a final design format, so we would have an accurate estimate of what the cost would be to build that future east-west connection between Kansas and Campbell, based on what unit prices are like under the Kansas project today. To give you some context, phase 2 of the Kansas project between Plainview and Farm Road 190, bid prices came in at $12.9 million and change. That's about a mile. That's about 1.1 miles, I think, in total length as far as total roadway that's being built for that $12.9 million price tag. That segment of the east-west arterial between Kansas and South Campbell, it's actually a little bit longer stretch. It's about 1.25 miles. So, you know, you might be in the $14 million range, give or take, if you kind of prorate that out. Those are similar corridors as far as the grading. Obviously, like the design features would be very similar. They're classified as the same types of roads. East-west arterial, when that's built, we would expect probably to approach it the same way we have Kansas, where you would do the full grading. You would clear everything for the ultimate 4-lane facility, but you would probably start with a 2-lane road like we've done with Kansas, and then expand it as the need exists to provide additional traffic capacity along it. Same kinds of pedestrian accommodations we probably look at doing again, like the 10-foot wide multi-use pedestrian pathway along the edge of it. Seems like that's been a really popular and useful provision in the Kansas project. But yeah, to do a project of that size, that scale, obviously it's going to be a little while as we wrap up with Kansas. I guess I'll just throw that out there, that's something we're looking at out on the horizon and planning for, and expecting that eventually those two primary arterials will connect with one another and really provide additional enhancement to the transportation system. So I guess with that, I don't know what questions. Mr. Steve, yes.
So the eastern terminus of the east-west arterial is the roundabout by the orthopedic hospital, correct? Near 65.
That's correct. If you're familiar with the Evans Road, Highway 65 general area, there's the roundabout that's been constructed, by the orthopedic hospital. That is the landing point eventually, on paper, for the east-west arterial corridor. And I should mention, not all of that is in Greene County. Obviously, there's a sizable chunk of that future corridor that's actually inside the incorporated boundaries of Springfield. So Greene County, over the years, we've historically always worked on the design aspects and planning for the portion that would extend east all the way to Kissick. If you're familiar with where Kissick, Farm Road 169 exists out there along that southern portion of the county. That piece has always been kind of viewed as the county's portion. That's pretty well where our unincorporated boundary meets the city of Springfield's boundary. They've always done planning and design work to plan for the future extension on east of that, connecting over to that roundabout. So that's just kind of and I guess something I should have mentioned when I talked about those long-range planning documents, our comprehensive plan and that major thoroughfare plan. It's important to know that like those long-range plans, those are not done in isolation. Meaning that Greene County doesn't come up with a plan that we think makes sense for a transportation system in Greene County, which would make no sense if the city of Springfield and Christian County and other joining jurisdictions, if they don't share the same plan, we would all be working towards future road connections and things that don't tie together to one another. And so what you'll see as you look at regional planning documents, not just Greene County's plan, but all of our surrounding counties, cities, all have similar long-range transportation plans. And all of those plans are made to mimic one another. And any locations where our jurisdictional boundaries join each other, they're all planning towards that same future connectivity, that same future transportation system. So I guess should have mentioned that even on the Kansas corridor, if you look at Christian County's long-range plans, or if you look at our regional OTO long-range transportation plan, you'll see that eventually the plan is Kansas would continue on south of Greene County. It would cross the James River. It would head south into Christian County and be a long north-south connecting roadway through their jurisdiction as well. That's all part of the future plan for that corridor and future connectivity for it. So there's lots of regional implications, I think, with the projects that we're working on right now and the future planning that goes into that. See, two questions. Yes.
I think
you may have just answered it, but has any of the officials in Christian County expressed any interest in extending this Kansas corridor to connect, say, either AA or 14 and Nixon?
Yeah, the question was, have we had recent conversations or dialogue about that future connection? And is there still an interest in their end to do that? It's been a while since we've had, I guess, real detailed dialogue with Christian County about the future extension of the corridor south. But they have reaffirmed in several different settings that yes, it definitely is still part of their long range plan. I think similar to us and the east west corridor, there's just they haven't identified any specific budget or timeline as to when that work would transpire. But there is, in utilizing kind of the same processes that Greene County does to preserve right of way and to protect the connectivity of that corridor, Christian County has done a lot of those same things over the years to make sure that there is still a viable, north-south connection heading down towards like the Highway 14 corridor, I think is how our plan continues to show that. So yes, it's still in the works. When my crystal ball is not good enough. I don't know.
For the major intersections that are in Greene County that are currently controlled by all-way stop signs, do you anticipate reconfiguring those to accommodate our traffic signals or roundabouts as traffic increases?
Yes. The other question was that the existing intersections that have been built along the new Kansas corridor, are those built or will they someday function in a different format than an always stop, like going to a traffic signal configuration? And the quick answer is yes. That is actually the way that the intersections were all designed and laid out. As Mark mentioned, what you're seeing built as far as pavement really only represents about half of the footprint that will ultimately exist. But all of the intersections were designed with the intent that those will someday function as completely signalized intersections at Plainview Road, Weaver Road, basically all of your major intersecting east-west roads that Kansas intersects with. We envision that someday those will be signalized and will function that way. But based on the traffic volumes that are there today and just the two-lane road configuration, they just don't meet the warrants that we would look to signalize an intersection at this point in time. And so that would be a part of the future build out someday to expand those.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. Thank you all.